everybody. Today we are debating whether or not the Christian God exists, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate. This is going to be a lot of fun, folks, as you have seen these two tag teams collide several weeks ago on whether or not God exists, and then the topic came up during that debate. Do you guys want to debate whether or not the Christian God exists in particular? And that's why we are here today. But want to let you know, if it's your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we are excited about many debates coming up. So for example, totally serious. This is not a drill, folks. This is the real thing. This Wednesday, Ray Comfort and Matt Dillahunty will be here on Modern Day Debate, debating whether or not the Christian gospel makes sense. It is going to, I'm worried the internet might implode, okay, guys? It's going to be crazy. So hopefully we will see you here for that. And I have to admit, I have to ask, if you can help me, folks. We have had so little time to promote it. And so if you want to just, like I said, I'm just frankly, there's nothing you really get out of it. I'm frankly just asking for your help. If you want to share that online, like Facebook, Twitter, that's on our social media, as we have had little time to promote it. And so we are excited about it. And we are excited about today's debate, which we are getting into right now. Want to let you know, as we are going, the speakers' links are in the description. So if you would like to hear any more from these guys, you can. That's why I put the links down there just for you. And also, today's going to be a fairly flexible format. Namely, about 10 to 15 minutes opening statements from each side. So that'll be split up between the two debaters on each side. Then open conversation, and finally about 30 minutes instead of Q&A. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you have a question, feel free to fire it into the old live chat. And if you tag me at Modern Day Debate, it makes it easier for me to get every single question in that Q&A list. So before we get this officially rolling, just want to say thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you. John, Smokey, Rib, and Michael, it's a pleasure to have you guys here. Thanks for coming back.
No problem, dude. Excited to be
Thanks
here.
so much for having us again.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
It'll be a good time.
100%, I agree. And with that, our gentleman on the affirmative will be kicking the ball off. So, gentlemen, the floor is all yours, John Maddox and Smokey Saint.
I'll be kicking things off. Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody, for coming to this debate, and for the audience. I like to look at these kinds of discussions as Smokey and myself being the lawyers and the audience being the jury. And today you're going to be faced with a very stark dichotomy in both style and substance, as evidence is presented for and against the existence of God, and most importantly, the Christian God. My opponents will likely attempt to use differences in interpretation, the plethora of denominations that exist, and ways in which the entire premise of God has been used for corruption and extenuation of power as supposed reasons why God does not exist. This, however, has zero to do with whether or not there is evidence for his existence. Rather, it is nothing but a smokescreen to enable atheists to avoid the hard questions. Pay close attention to the almost guaranteed attempts to argue over the definition of a single word, refusal to consider historic context, and to inject modern subjectivity onto objective truth. This is nothing but an endeavor to accomplish the ultimate objective of an atheist, which is to sow seeds of doubt and project their own rejection of absolute truth onto others. To show this, you must consider what atheists of all sort deny as evidence for any God, let alone the Christian one. Toward this end, I will be presenting reasons why a God must exist, and my partner will be expanding this to showcase why the Christian God is the most logical, plausible, and probable conclusion to reach. First, our universe had a beginning. All evidence shows anything which is material requires an external causation in order for the effect to be achieved. Therefore, it is reasonable to conclude that an external cause was required for the universe to come into being. Nothing about this point requires anything but logical thought, an analysis of what is accepted to be true in all cases, except the one that has the most relevance. How do we exist? The irony of this point is that our opponents love to use this conclusion as supposed proof that Christians just believe in magic and fairy tales. I find this humorous given the fact that if there is no independent agent outside of space and time, then they ultimately must believe that we poofed into existence with no cause. Isn't that rather magical? This leads to the fine-tuning of the universal constants, which all must be in perfect alignment, or the universe will implode or explode, not achieve the perfect rate of expansion which enables it, and therefore life, to exist. While atheists attempt to downplay the significance of these constants being perfect, and argue things such as an infinite multiverse can account for this purely through chance, this does nothing but avoid addressing the need for an external cause. Next, we must address the fine-tuning of our solar system. While they will argue the universe is so big there must be other planets like Earth, they completely ignore that without the other planets in our solar system, with their specific orbits and specific mass, it is admitted that Earth would not be able to sustain life. This is before accounting for the fact that our sun must be a specific type of star, of a specific size, and project a specific level and type of radiation, or life could not exist. This means, just as the word describes, our solar system is just that, a system. And without the different parts working in synchronicity, we could not exist. But before addressing our planet itself, we must also remember that our perfectly balanced solar system must also be in a specific location in a specific type of galaxy, or life could not exist. Not only that, without this perfect location, we would not be able to observe the rest of the cosmos in the way that we do. And as if this was not enough, the technology which enables us to observe these things must exist at a specific time in the expansion of the universe in order for us to even observe it. To me, these layers of specificity destroy all explanations which deny the existence of God. As if what has already been outlined is not enough, we must now consider the stunning requirements for life itself to come into being. First, let us consider what is recognized as the simplest form of life, and how its simpleness by comparison to other forms of life does not mean that it is actually simple. The simplest known organism, the Mycoplasma genitalium, has a genome of 580,000 base pairs. This astonishing number enables it to contain 470 genes that code for 470 proteins with an average length of 347 amino acids per protein. The odds against just one specified protein at that length are 1 in 10 to the 451st power. If we calculate the entire proteome, then the odds are 1 in 20 to the 164,000th power. And this is without accounting for the increased improbability when you consider that nature had to select only left-handed amino acids and bifunctional ones. All of this is before considering all of these genes must have existed at the same time in the same location on a chaotic prebiotic Earth in an environment that is admitted to be less advantageous for the required chemical reactions to occur. To put this in context, the total number of seconds to work with for the entire history of the universe is only 10 to the 18th power. The total number of particles in the entire universe is only 10 to the 80th power. And the total number of interactions by those particles in the history of the universe is 10 to the 143rd power. And all of this is before considering the origin of the genetic code and the arbitrary assignment of values to codons to equal amino acids and the requirement of DNA and transcription proteins and translation proteins to exist simultaneously for even basic replication to occur. What is ironic about this entire debate is that I am barely scratching the surface regarding the incredible number of variables which must operate in unison for life to exist. And so as you consider all of these pieces of evidence, ask yourself, is it more reasonable to conclude that an external agent, an intelligent one, was needed for life to exist? Or to imagine something that is obviously impossible to have occurred by chance, somehow did occur by chance? We are all surrounded by things that have similar improbabilities to occur by chance, such as the technology enabling us to have this debate. Yet we readily accept that barrier can be easily overcome by an intelligent designer. Now, what would be impossible by any other standard is now 100% possible. Unfortunately, like most atheists, my opponents will suspend rational thought in order to reject being held accountable by their creator, and will continue to claim these factors cannot be used as evidence for the existence of God. However, I am not here to convince them, rather to sway those of you who are watching this debate that there is no tremendous leap of faith required to believe in a God. You must only rationally consider the evidence presented and determine which God is true, not if there isn't one to choose from. It is therefore my position that the Christian God is the correct conclusion. And now I yield the remainder of my time to my partner for this portion of the case.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brother Maddox. Really appreciate that opening. Thank you so much, sir. Well, Smokey Saint here. Thank you so much again. Sincerest thanks to Modern Day Debate, our opponents, and of course the audience for attending. You guys are wonderful people. Appreciate you being here. Well, John and I were happy to come back for a rematch solely for our love of conversation and debate. We also are happy to help insert the foot in mouths of all the atheists in chat who called us cowards to defend a specific God, while your peers seem to dodge and run from our arguments all last debate. They clearly wanted to actually debate the Christian God last time, and therefore tried to force our hand, even attempting to tell us that we are obligated based upon our scriptures. Well, number one, I never trust a secularist to interpret my Bible. Number two, my Bible doesn't tell me how I am to defend my faith. That is up to my own personal discretion as I take leading from the Holy Spirit. So I don't need to be told how I am supposed to defend my faith exactly how a cynical secularist tells me to. With that said, I appreciate my partner giving a great opening to lead ultimately to one rational conclusion. Naturalism cannot help us here. Intelligent design is the only rational conclusion one can draw from the mountain of fine-tuning and design evidence that we see. I already predict the puddle analogy because atheists think this is so sound to try and belittle the perspective of theists, so let me return the favor by painting it from our perspective so we don't have to waste time on a nonsense analogy. Atheists love to say that we are the water in the hole, thinking the hole was fine-tuned for it. Well, atheists are the water in a bottle thinking it was naturally manifested. Not even addressing the actual stupidity of the argument that you certainly need all of our universal fine-tuning constants to even get water, let alone a planet for it to exist on. But now you need to explain sentient water arriving from naturalism. This example is a total philosophical embarrassment whenever scrutinized with more than cursory consideration. To me, atheists are like a dice shooter at a craps table. No matter how many times they roll the dice, it always comes up sixes. While the rest of the rational world at some point would draw the conclusion the die are rigged and someone must have loaded them, the atheists just seem to perpetually continue to think that they are just that lucky. Is their agency detection on this matter actually functional? We can't just rely on some gut instinct of what we think design is. If we made contact with a robotic life form, would we think it was a product of naturalism, or would we think that someone built it? It is something for every naturalist to ponder in terms of how they are presupposing the nature of our reality. There is no way for naturalism to explain or justify its perspective as rational, and even attempting to indulge it is nothing more than an exercise of actual blind faith that the atheists try to constantly project on us. They have no justifiable reasons to think that complex life could arise from chance circumstance, yet they continue to do so despite the ever-growing mountain of evidence to the contrary. You can't believe in a divine mind that set all the constants to our universe and designed our biology, but you can have confidence in the possibility of probability that rests on the very verge of impossibility, as long as it justifies non-theistic conclusions. Now, that is what I would call blind faith. You have no idea how naturalism could be responsible for any of this. When asked, you contently respond with, I don't know, and you ignore the secondary implication from that statement. I don't know, but I have faith someday naturalism will be able to explain it. A deity is just simply out of the question. Now, the important point: which God? I have a hunch that many atheists cling so desperately to the grotesque irrationality of naturalism because they believe they have sufficiently falsified all the God claims that they have come across. Many of them travel in very specific circles, engaging with others who share their particular shallow-minded perspectives and unsophisticated interpretations of Scripture, believing they stand on rational ground, falsifying the Christian God when all they have really done is burn a bunch of straw men. The Bible, as a collective literary work, is unparalleled in its complexity and consistency compared to any other work of literature in all of human history. Inside is a revelation that can only fit the description of something slightly greater than simply the work of human hands and human culture, if only by considering how non-normative it is in both structure and its history of textual criticism. Additionally, all of the religious texts, only the Bible has an account of all the religious texts, only the Bible has an account of the history of the creation of the world that actually comports with reality and what we have discovered in the natural scientific revelations. Only in Scripture do we find an establishment of progressive moral absolutes that have been carried forward in spirit by every successful Western nation, where freedom of speech and sanctity of life are attributed as absolutes in the protection of individual rights and personal liberty. I don't just have confidence that the Christian God exists, I believe he is necessary for our very cultural or civil survival as a constant where subjective moral relativism will eventually fail, if not usher in a deluge of blood to protect its own sovereignty and control. The slaughter of the faithful has always been guised in the perception that religious people are dangerous to society. And in some ways, I actually would agree. But I believe it is specifically the atheist religion where cultural poison actually lies. And I yield.
You bet. With that, we will kick it over to our skeptical friends who are here with us tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, gentlemen, want to say thanks so much for being here, and the floor is all yours, Rib and Michael.
Hey, Rib, I went last time. Why don't you go first this time?
Yeah, sure. So I had said in the last debate that this has been asked quite often of me, or that I have given this answer quite often, is what would make me believe? And the answer to that I have given in the past is I don't know, but God does. I'm going to make a few concessions tonight. I'm going to make it a little bit easier for you guys because I'm just that nice of person. If you can present to me the same amount and the same type and the same rigorous standard of evidence that is there for something such as evolution, I will believe. So just as a thought experiment. If you or somebody else was to come up to me and say, "Hey, Rib, I hear that you believe in evolution. Why?" I'd say, "No problem at all." I will point to you to the head of the Human Genome Project, who is a fundamentalist Christian, by the way, who says that the evidence in the DNA alone is enough to prove common ancestry. But I hear you, you want a little bit more than that. That's no problem at all. I can point you to several sites, to several peer-reviewed papers where there is diagrams and graphs showing what species there was and what species there is now and how exactly we got to that. But I hear you want a little bit more than that. You want something that under the right conditions that you could physically touch yourself. No problem at all. I can point you in the direction of several museums where you could go in, and again, under the right conditions, you could physically touch the fossils going from Homo habitus to Homo erectus to what we are, Homo sapien. If you can provide to me the same standard of evidence for God as there is for evolution, this will very, very quickly become a 3v1 debate, and I will convert right here on this stream in less than an hour. However, not just myself having a call-in show for the last 4 years, but also given that this argument that these types of debates have been happening for decades now, I don't necessarily have my hopes up, yet I still remain optimistic. I don't have faith in anything. I don't have faith. Actually, if you could come up with something, if you could point to something that I believe in based on faith, I'll stop believing it, because faith is not a reliable pathway to truth. So everything that I believe, everything that I accept, every value that I hold is based on evidence, nothing else. I'm going to yield the rest of the time to Michael.
Alrighty. Thanks, Rib. Okay, so in our last discussion, some interesting words and statements were tossed out there. They were tossed by people in the live chat as well as by our interlocutors. They included things like, "You're getting your asses kicked," "Wow, atheists showed up to wrong debate," "They missed the topic," etc. Admittedly, these were almost exclusively aimed at me. And if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I did what I did on purpose, and I'll explain why. Our opponents did what has become, in many cases, typical. They argue not for their God, but for a God. This is also done with purpose. If the debate discussion is meant to continue past one talk, well, they've laid a foundation. If it goes no further, they can return to their echo chambers and still declare victory. You see, after all, they'll declare, we demonstrated a God exists. And because they'd be speaking to their fellow acolytes who are totally aware that, and in fact know that the Bible is true and that it's Yahweh or Jehovah, the battle is won. Oh, those poor, silly, misguided atheist. I sure hope God grants them grace one day. Now, to be clear, a God was not demonstrated in our last discussion. If a God is supernatural, it could not have been. We are evidently unable to test for anything supernatural and blocked from confirming any type of supernatural causation. It will, of course, be argued that a God was totally demonstrated, but the fact is the only thing that was demonstrated was life is rare, complex, and the process is intricate. Every other bit of scientific bloviation that was vomited out by our opponents did nothing to show anything than what I just said. So what we get today, I don't know. The debate today is, does a Christian God exist? There's a simple answer to this. No, not evidently. People can give personal stories ranging from, I needed to find a parking spot, I prayed, and lo and behold, there it was, to I heard a voice and I just knew. And while these are super convincing to them, they're certainly not evidence for a God. When we speak about the Christian God, we can and must go to the Bible. To do anything else is dishonest. Now, this is really simple. Either the Bible is the inspired word of God, or God-breathed, like it says in 2 Timothy 3, or it isn't. I'm going to try to keep count of how many times I hear things like, you're taking it out of context. You need to understand the languages of the times, of the cultures, etc. Some of the Bible is metaphorical or allegorical. It's clear you've never really studied. You're cherry picking. Well, if you start with God, then this all makes sense. How do you know it can't happen that way or that it didn't happen that way? But my favorite is, the Bible doesn't say that. Well, trust me, when I quote it, I'll quote chapter and verse. I'm going to state just a few facts here, just to spice things up a little bit. People aren't made from dust and ribs, like it says in Genesis 2:7 and in 2:21. Bats aren't birds, like it says in Leviticus 11:19. The earth moves, unlike what it says in 1 Chronicles 16:30. There was no global flood, like it says in Genesis 7:17. You can't blow horns and yell at walls and have them fall over, like it says in Joshua 6:5. You can't see the world from a tall mountain, like it says in Matthew 4:8. Rabbits don't chew cud, like it says in Leviticus 11:6. Axe heads cannot float, unlike what it says in 2 Kings 6:6. There's no such thing as giants, unlike what it says in Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33. There's no such thing as wizards or witches, unlike what it says in Leviticus 20:27, excluding the fact that I have a sister who claims to be a Wiccan. I keep asking her to cast spells. She can't do it. The moon isn't a light, unlike what it says in Genesis 1:16. Walking on water is not a thing, unlike what it says in Matthew 14:25. There's never a zombie apocalypse like it says in Matthew 27:52. And you can't walk around in fire and not get burned up, unlike what it says in Daniel 3:25. Lastly, Romans 1:18 through 20. Because if it was so damn clear being understood for the things that are made, we wouldn't be having this discussion. I don't need the Christian God to be made up, but you guys need it to be real. And it isn't, clearly and evidently. That's it. Thank you.
All right, with that, we will be going into the open discussion section. So, want to also mention, I completely forgot at the start, as I mentioned, you can fire your questions into the old live chat, and then super chat is also an option, in which case you can ask make a comment instead of just asking a question, and it'll push your question or comment during the Q&A to the top of the list. With that, gentlemen, the floor is all yours. Thanks again for being here.
Beautiful. Do you want to go first, John, or you want me to ask a question?
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. There's plenty of things that I will go after, but
okay. Michael, quick question for you, sir. Can
Sure.
you give me your scholarly definition of biblical inspiration?
My scholarly definition is just from the Bible. The Bible says all scripture is God-breathed and suitable for instruction and teaching in all things.
Beautiful. So can you tell me what inspiration means?
Well, you want me to give my definition?
Well, I want you to give you seem to know what inspiration means because you're telling me what it means. So I'm asking you to give me your definition that you're
I'm just quoting the Bible.
Well, you're not.
Look,
because
either the Bible is the word of God or not.
Inspiration. You have to define inspiration. You're dodging. I would appreciate you to define the word you're using and telling me that that's what it means. And that God wrote all of it. Is that what you mean? God wrote all of it?
No, that God inspired either through talking to people or through, I don't know, putting things in their head. People wrote it. Okay, listen, that's a clever ploy. Either the Bible, do you think the Bible is inerrant?
Yes.
Okay.
In
So the
terms
Bible
of
says,
of
so the
doctrine,
Bible
yes.
says the Bible was inspired by God. It
Sure.
either was or it wasn't. If you're prepared to say Looney Tunes people wrote it,
No,
which
I'm
is
just
more
wondering,
the truth, that's cool, and we
That's
can move
fine.
on.
We'll just go with you don't know what inspiration does, and we'll just skip that. I did want to ask you, Michael, not Michael. I'm sorry, Rib. Rib, you say you believe nothing on faith. Can you unpack that a little bit for me? Do you believe nothing unless you absolutely empirically know it?
Okay, so it would probably help if I give my definition of faith. And faith is that which you adhere to when you don't have a good reason for why you believe something.
Is that how we
So if
Christians
you have a
use
good
faith?
reason, then well, that's my definition. So
Okay, so you know, it doesn't matter if it's the Bible's definition off of pistis, the Greek word. You don't care about that.
it's not necessarily that I don't care about it. I'll
Well,
just kind of say it
okay,
again.
well, we chose.
That's the definition that I use for
Okay,
faith.
well, I would recommend maybe checking with a scholar to see if that definition is even feasible, because I'm gonna tell you right now it isn't. And if you know even just a little bit of history about the choice of the word faith, it comes from fide, the Latin root, which means confidence. Of course, it's the same root we get confidence. We chose that word because we were trying to find something that related in corollary to the word in Greek pistis, which means belief based upon confidence. Okay, so now what I would propose to you to consider, sir, is that you have a lot of things you believe on faith. Anything you don't know yet believe, you fill the gap in between belief and knowledge on faith. You care to respond?
Name one.
Do you believe anyone loves you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have proof of that? Do you know it beyond a shadow of a doubt?
Based on the available evidence, yes.
Okay, well, you just have confidence in it. You don't know it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
It's based on evidence.
It could be wrong, right?
That's not confidence, sir. It's based on evidence.
Okay, it's based on evidence, but you could be wrong, right?
Based on the available evidence, actually, no. All of the evidence points to the fact that this person loves me.
So you're saying
all of it. There's not a single piece of evidence that would state otherwise.
So you're saying they would never provide you evidence that they don't love you, like they could cheat on you or something like that. That wouldn't register.
They could do that, yes, but so far they haven't. So
but
based off of the available evidence,
but if they did, that would be evidence you were wrong, right?
Correct, I guess. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, John, do you have a question you want to crack in here?
Well, I mean, in your opening, Rib, you were talking about being able to shift your position if showed you evidence, right? And you one of the things that you used that supposedly proved your position, your belief in evolution was phylogeny. But I'm assuming that you're unaware of the fact that phylogeny is collapsing now that additional variables such as the phylogeny of microRNAs are coming into the equation and showing polar opposites to what had been proven beyond all doubt by the evolutionary community to be true in terms of the supposed heredity factors. And that is before even accounting for the direct reality that, and apparently you are unaware of this, that the entire premise of phylogeny is completely dependent on a assumption that we all come from a common ancestor. And unfortunately, there's many papers on this that have been published in the last 4 or 5 years about the incongruency of the phylogenies that have been so heavily relied upon by folks who are arguing that evolution is true. Therefore, there is no need for an intelligent agent to be in the picture. So I'm just confused as to why you're holding that to be such strong defense of your position, or more importantly, just to ask you if you're unaware of the issues that I'm outlining here that are directly assaulting what you seem to think is, fundamental proof of your position.
Okay, that whole point may have been picked up wrong. That was
you stated it as direct evidence. You made it rather clear that I would have to disprove this.
So just hang on. If you're going to ask me a question, surely you should let me finish.
I'm just making sure you don't dodge.
That was funny. That was used as like a visual or like a thought experiment in order to demonstrate what would convince me. So I could have picked anything. It didn't have to just be evolution. It could have been anything.
Right.
So
the point is, I'm
I
destroying your thought
outlined
experiment.
One sec.
I outlined 3 different types of evidence that is there for evolution. If you can demonstrate all of them and give me as much evidence as is there for evolution, for God, as I said in my opening, I will convert on the stream.
Okay, so that's kind of the point of all this, is when you if one, you're relying on something that is not even as a foundational component of what would have to be overcome in order for you to convert, quote unquote, but that element is not even considered to be a valid proof in academia, and that is starting to grow rapidly because of these, as further discoveries come along, which showcase, wait, this is exponentially more complex and more structured than we thought, and the requirements in order for this to occur are that much more improbable. They're facing tremendous issues with that, before you even account for the fact that in genetics we're seeing 2 different pathways on between microRNAs and genes. So the point I'm making is that if that one of the pieces that is the most fundamental is collapsing, but if you look at it from the opposite perspective, that, hey, we've got similar functions, just like in any other kind of technology, that are being leveraged with minor modifications, which happens every single day in every piece of technology that we utilize, you're actually seeing direct evidence for structured nested hierarchies and for design, not bottom-up evolution. So the point I'm making is that the evidence is growing by the day in favor of the designer, not the opposite. So I'm not understanding why you are so confident that I don't have any evidence, even though I'm literally explaining why something you're presenting as a major piece is collapsing.
Okay, so even if I was to accept everything that you have just said, the collapse or the failure of evolution does not indicate that a designer is it doesn't. Okay, so taking away proof of evolution doesn't give it to proof of a designer. If evolution was completely disproven, if there was, headline news everywhere in the morning that evolution is completely, it's dead, we were completely 100% wrong, it still doesn't prove that a God exists, and it still
And how
doesn't
do we
prove.
exist? How does life exist?
I mean, that's literally an argument from ignorance fallacy. There is
So
no
the point I made in our first debate,
bigger
and
example that I can even
I made
think
again
of
today, which is the fact that, per the admission of origin of life researchers, the improbability and the complexity requirement, the simultaneous complexity requirements for abiogenesis to occur are so astronomical that they are beyond, in any other context, they would be completely considered beyond zero, right? They'd be completely zero, because there is literally not enough time in the window of opportunity. But per the evolutionary timeline, supposedly life came into existence through undirected process. And then you have to account for the arbitrary assignment of values in the genetic code and the structural geographic layout of DNA in order for gene regulation to occur, which enables life to exist. And all of these pieces, the point I'm making is, in no other context would they be remotely concluded that these elements could exist without intelligent agent being required for their existence. Case in point, humans are currently creating our own DNA, computers, technology storage, and biological systems using the exact processes that exist in biology, because they literally follow the exact same structure as computer science, nanotechnology, and machines. So the point I'm making is that not only if evolution as one component is not being able to explain this, and on the flip side, you are completely 100% reliant on something that is so improbable to occur that in any other context it would be considered zero. Why do you consider it to be more rational of a conclusion that God is absolutely not exist, rather than it is more likely that God does exist in that context?
Okay, so it's not my position that God does absolutely not exist. That's not
No,
my
that's my position.
yeah, that's not my stance. I'd also like to know, and perhaps it is my fault, and if it is, then I wholly take blame. Why are we talking about evolution and not the Christian God?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that. Like,
Yeah, that's fine. In
waiting for
fact,
us to
I'm
get to the
still
actually-
Christian
waiting
God.
on the evidence because
Sure.
I mean, like
Well,
that's what we're here
you
for.
brought it up in your opening statement. If you wanted to stay away from it, why the heck did you bring
Yes,
it up?
but
in
it
your
was
opening?
used to prove a point. It was used to
And
demonstrate
and I was
something.
proving that your point was a completely
So, no, you
implausible
poked holes
position to
in you
take.
poked holes in
This is
an analogy that I used to try and demonstrate the
Right,
types
and
of
the point I'm
evidence that
making
could
is
might
if-
want
convince
to
me.
use this
if you're
as an
using that as
opportunity.
your faith,
I don't think we've heard
defeat me.
Michael and Smokey for a while, so we might. Pardon my interruption, fellows. I promise we'll come
Yeah, no,
back
that's
to you.
fine.
Michael, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things. I guess I'll go in reverse order. So John, you said one of the things that was interesting. You said with the advancement of technology and the specific time we have, all these things, working in our advantage. It's really, really interesting that, it's like, before cameras were around, nobody had pictures of, the Loch Ness monster and things like that. There was, and now that we do have cameras and all these other technological advancements, we can't seem to find it, or Bigfoot, or aliens, or God. In a time when we would now have the capacity, everybody has a device in their pocket that they could, do a TikTok video on in 3 seconds, and this discussion would be over. So I think it's interesting that, given our technological advancements, God's deciding to hide now. And then, Smokey, you said something super interesting, not actually in your opening, but when I asked you a question, you said the Bible's right, and it's just totally not.
And it's doctrine. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's just totally not.
Okay.
Because like of all the things that I said, like not one of those examples in Scripture that I said are possible in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Unless
science stuff. I know.
Unless you're going to presuppose that God exists, and that's just begging the question. So now, what Rib and I would both love is for you guys to debate your God exists. I mean, it doesn't, but give it a shot.
Well, you've kind of put a lot of arguments. Maybe you don't want me to address them, but I'd like to actually come to your claims of the science in the Bible. Are you a Star Trek fan?
No, I prefer Star Wars.
Okay, fair. Are you at least familiar enough with Star Trek to know about the Prime Directive?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so like the idea, of course, you careful, you don't want to give any information or extra knowledge to a life form in case you could irreparably change its course and path and development, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious how much science you think God needed to teach the writers so that they could be accurate to our modern scientific standards.
That begs the question that there was a God and that he had anything to do with that, and
well, no, you made the
argument. It's also
you
very
made the
interesting.
argument, sir.
Yes, but what I'm saying is it your statement? How much did God have to teach them? Begs the question that the God exists in the first place. So
sure.
So
does your example. So does your example that you're trying to throw at me.
You are appealing to an undemonstrated standard.
And you are using an undemonstrated standard to make an example at me, sir. And
what
I am
undemonstrated
using it right
standard did I use?
By using God and saying God wrote it, yet he doesn't know what these things mean. So I am answering that, and now you're trying to run from it. I would appreciate if you would just address it. How much science did God, if God exists, need to teach these people in order to get them to be accurate enough to satiate your needs? How much progression, how much scientific progression, how much extra vernacular in order for them to understand these complex principles did he have to teach them and progress them further to satiate you that the non-science text needs to come across as a science text?
Oh, he wouldn't have to at all. He could do what he did when the fables were written and just come out of the sky and appear as a burning bush. He wouldn't have to do any of those things. He could have done what the made up storybook says he did.
Oh, so he needed to use words that no one at that time would have recognized in order to satiate you, apparently.
No, all he'd have to do is come down now, like Rib said earlier.
Oh, okay.
Like Rib said earlier, I don't know what it would take, but this God does.
To everyone or just you?
To anybody.
Well, no.
Like,
no, I need an answer. To everyone or just you?
Well, if he wants to convince me, then I guess he'd have to do it to me.
And how would you convince someone else after he appears to you?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
You
But-
wouldn't. Well, you wouldn't because
But
you
the
face
problem
same
is that the
issues we all
anecdotes,
have.
and this is the same, this is what I said earlier, is that the anecdotes don't mean anything, right? That's why it would have to be something greater than that. It would have to
Well-
be in a way to everybody. God has the capacity. Your imaginary friend has the capacity to absolutely 100% convince every single solitary person on this planet right now in a way that not one of them could deny it. And
Perfect.
he either
Beautiful.
chooses not to, or it's actually because he's not there. But it's very, very simple. He has the capacity. So if he doesn't want to do it, fuck him. And and the other is, well, of course he doesn't want to do it because he's not there. It's just made up. It would be great if you could demonstrate this thing that you're so convinced of
I'd
actually
appreciate
exists.
you wrapping up, sir.
Go ahead, fire away.
Okay. I'm really kind of trying to understand here how you're trying to relate this, and saying that God just is somehow obligated to show up, as if he doesn't really have the option to choose how he wants to manifest, people in his kingdom based upon his choices. He has to do it the way you want. He has to show up to everyone. So let me pose to you, is there a metaphysical righteousness issue with your desire for God to show up to everyone based upon the Bible?
I don't know what you mean by that question.
I mean Romans 2 specifically. Is that helping?
So if he wants me to believe, and again, going back to what Rib said, if he wants me to believe, then he's got to do something. Like, he has the capacity to eliminate
I
my
understand.
skepticism.
You want him to exercise his power. What I'm actually drawing attention to, sir, is that what you're actually asking God to do is exercise his power to violate his righteousness. Because it's very clear that a righteous God...
That again begs the question.
Well, fine. But you're challenging me, begging the question inside my worldview. So why don't you just let me answer? How about that?
Sure.
Okay, great. So God has a standard of which to uphold that has everything to do with his constraints of power as well, and that's his righteousness. God cannot use his power to do something unrighteous. Would you at least agree with that as a theme from Scripture?
So he's not omnipotent then?
He is omnipotent, but you're asking power to do something power can't do. So you're being illogical.
So he's not omnipotent.
He is omnipotent, but again, you're trying to claim power should be able to do something illogical in order for it to be all powerful. It doesn't make sense.
Is like using your voice that powerful? Because I'm doing it right now. I don't feel very powerful.
What are you talking about?
Everybody
What are you
anthropomorphizes everyone anthropomorphizes God in some way. In fact, the Bible says we're created in him as his image, which means he's just an ape.
Okay.
So he would have a voice.
Okay, you said we don't come from dirt. Do you believe life came from dirt?
Please don't go to the whole like Kent Hovind.
Well, you said it.
Struck a puddle.
You said it. Does life come from dirt? Because you
No,
mocked
life
us.
doesn't
You
come from
mocked
dirt.
us for believing that humans could come from dirt. Do you believe life came from dirt?
Is dirt alive?
No.
Then no, I don't believe that clearly.
Okay, what do you believe it came from then?
I don't know.
Beautiful. I appreciate you for trying to drag us into.
Is there something wrong with I don't know?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, because you're dragging us into a realm of tons of I don't knows, including I don't know about morality, and it's monstrous.
You're the one who claims to know. Prove it.
I yield. I don't claim to know. I claim to have a high confidence, of which you guys claim to have a high confidence in something contrary that makes no sense. So this is where we're going with this debate. I'll yield. I give it to
let me interject on this. So, Michael, you were talking about, why doesn't God show us how everything is, right? But before that, you were talking about technology and advancements and all these things, and how when technology developed, how are we not being able to see God? Well, the irony of that statement is that, and I've alluded to this and directly stated this in multiple occasions, is that the evidence that we are now able to observe through the technology that you're talking about enables us to see clearly that a God is required for our existence. So you, sir, are the one that is denying that there is any evidence for God by saying, oh, I don't know how this could have happened, when the logical induction, deduction, every type of conclusion that can be derived from the ridiculous plethora of elements that in no other context could exist without the intelligent agent, the designer, being required, somehow do not serve as direct evidence for the designer. So if you're going to sit there and just be like, hey, well, even though it looks like evidence, it's not, and I don't know how it could have happened any other way, but it wasn't that way, then you're obviously your entire worldview is dependent upon wearing blinders. And obviously you're not going to be able to see any evidence for a God, and you're going to by default discount anybody who says they've had personal experiences or any of the other components that any possible component that can be outlined in favor of God, the Bible, the Christian God, any God, period, is going to be completely dismissed by you. So how do you account for the fact that you're willing to accept things that in any other context would be considered evidence for an intelligent agent by not having that requirement?
So you said a couple interesting things there. The first thing you said was is that there's so much evidence and you said it actually, I think you said the same thing to Rib, is that there's so much evidence now that's pointing to this designer. And what's really funny is that why isn't there then a scientific consensus that there is a God? That's really curious. That's really curious. And the other thing is that you said that, oh, you're not going to account for personal experiences. Well, I don't think your personal experiences count for much. The same as you don't think a Muslims or Hindus do. Until there's something more to it, like it's like because you could use all these types of things. Every single argument you used about the complexity and all that other stuff could be used by a Muslim apologist to defend the existence of Allah. And every single thing you said from a scientific perspective could be used by a Hindu apologist to defend the existence of Ganesh, Brahman, and Vishnu.
Okay, so
what the hell is so special about Yahweh?
So if it could all be evidence for a God, why do you just, in any other context, you're saying, oh, well, they could use this as evidence as well, but you're going to dismiss the evidence completely?
Yeah, because if it can be used for evidence for any of them, it can't be evidence for any one of them specifically.
Okay, that's quite possibly one of the stupidest things I have ever heard anybody ever say. Okay, let's think about this for a second, Michael. If I came and handed you a painting,
right? Okay, the painting exists, right?
The painting exists, right?
Sure. And so your analogy already doesn't mean anything.
No, hang on.
Your analogy already doesn't mean anything because the painting exists.
Hey, are you going to shut up and let me finish this point? Because you're being a complete idiot right now.
Sure.
If I hand you a painting, did a painter have to exist? Yes or no?
Yeah, a painter had to exist.
Okay, cool. Now, there's 5 people who say they know who the painter was, but none of them can show a picture of the guy painting the painting. Does that mean that there wasn't a painter?
No.
Okay, then. So, in the same context, just because a Muslim apologist, a Hindu apologist, or whoever apologist could potentially use something such as genetic code as evidence for a creator, how does that enable you to dismiss the fact that it's evidence at all for anybody, just because you at this point haven't even considered which one might be the correct one?
Because it's not evidence for a God.
So it's evidence for a painter if there's something that where we require a designer and a painter in order to exist. Right. But it doesn't apply to...
because we know that paintings are designed. Yeah. They are not
Show me a fucking universe factory.
We know that things are designed by contrasting it with that which naturally occurs. Are you going to let me finish now?
Oh, go ahead, bro.
We recognize design by contrasting it with that which naturally occurs. So trees, flowers, all these things naturally occur. We have no evidence whatsoever of any paintings coming into existence out of nothing and like needing no designer. And we have a mountain of evidence of every single painting being painted by somebody.
Okay.
This is exactly what I said in the last debate. It's the fucking universe of watches, island of watches, beaches of watches. Everything's designed to you.
Dude, you jacked up the fucking watchmaker analogy so much. It was hilarious, dude. But you tried to do the puddle analogy too. It was hilarious how bad you were at that. But
it's cute you think that.
In the context of naturally occurring, what you seem incapable of comprehending is that, and I've made this point multiple times now, apparently it's just going over your head, is that the arbitrary assignment of values in a code, there is no other possible context in which that does not require an intelligent agent. Name one. Is there any code?
What we're comparing it to.
Is there any
code?
Guys
say we need to compare it to something. and it's super complex, and we have no evidence of anything like that existing naturally anywhere else. Yet you say naturalism here.
Sure, fine. Then it's Ganesh. And I stand on just as firm footing as you do.
So all are all
I
the God
stand on
claims
just
the
as
same?
firm footing on you do.
So okay, that's fine. Ganesh is just as good of a God claim as the Christian God.
It way predates Christianity.
So it's
There's
better.
just as much evidence for it.
Yeah.
So it's
There's
better.
just as
It
much
predates
objectively.
Christianity.
There's just as much objectively verifiable evidence for it, meaning none.
So you're a Buddhist now, or a Hindu?
No, of course not.
So then
Basically,
why are you
you
making?
live in a
So then
fantasy
this is
land of
begging the
God.
question. So this is begging the question.
You
Now
live
you're
in a
just trying to
fantasy
play
land of a
games
god.
instead of act. Why don't you want to have an actual debate? Why you want to just run and play these games?
We're sitting here waiting for you
Why won't
to
you
show
give
us
me evidence
evidence.
of your God?
Yeah, no, we're giving you evidence, and you guys
No, you're
just
not.
sit there
You're
and
giving
say
me
not
arguments.
evidence. Okay,
You're
then
not. You're giving me
okay.
arguments.
Define evidence. Tell me what you guys view evidence as.
Well,
Evidence
because
is go ahead.
if I told you that I have a glass on my table right now, the evidence for that statement would be being presenting the glass. Here, look, I'll
That's
even do it.
empiricism.
There you
I'm
go.
talking
There's the
about
glass.
evidence. I'm talking
That's
about
evidence.
evidence, not empiricism. Those are two different things.
If I make a claim, there is a
Empiricism
glass.
is not evidence.
Stop. If I make a claim, there is a glass on my table. The way to demonstrate that claim is by presenting the glass. You have made the claim that a God exists. Demonstrate it.
Okay, so you will only accept empiricism as your standard of evidence?
I only accept evidence. Yes, I don't accept arguments.
Anything that
Arguments
would count
go
as
again. Arguments go coupled with
Sure.
evidence, but arguments on their own, absent evidence, it's word salad. You might as well say blue hair tomato.
Please stop dodging. I'm trying to understand.
I'm not dodging. I'm answering your question.
Okay, to make it a deduction or an induction, do you have to have physical, in order to deduce that something happened? Do you have to have witnessed it happen?
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. It depends
No,
on the claim.
no. Answer the question.
It depends on the claim. It depends on the claim.
If two cars ran into each other, is it a reasonable conclusion that even if you didn't see it happen, there were two people driving the two cars and they ran into each other?
Sure.
Okay,
That's
but
reasonable.
But there were no drivers in the car, and you never saw a driver. Nobody ever saw the two cars run into each other.
Sure, it's still reasonable because, well, unless they're two Teslas who are driving themselves.
Okay, so in the context of what we're talking about, fine-tuned universe, the complexity of biology, the components that in any other context would require a designer.
Sure.
And they could not be restricted by the limitations that are the whole reason why a designer is required in the first place for them to occur inside of our universe.
Or so you assert.
Okay, well, they're asserted, and this is accepted by everybody except for staunch, hardcore atheists.
Except for the overwhelming consensus of scientists from multiple fields of study, including biology,
really?
Chemistry, geology.
Yeah, okay, bro. You need to go read some papers from Origin of Life researchers where they literally concede.
I can look at that stuff all day on Answers in Genesis if I want.
I'm not talking about Answers in Genesis. I'm talking about from nature.com, dude. You apparently haven't read this stuff and you're full of crap, because I can go get quotes out the freaking yin yang of the papers that are in my publicly available folder in my Google Drive that showcase exactly where staunch atheists are admitting this.
Sure.
Hardcore atheists.
Cool.
Are admitting this is true.
Then go take down evolution. Why the hell are you telling us?
Okay, evolution is collapsing by itself, man. And I'm taking part in the party. But the fact that you guys are so ignorant of some of this stuff is hilarious, because you're in such a brainwashed, I'm wearing my blinders, I'm going to refuse any and all premise of comparison at all to even think about whether or not an intelligent agent will be required, therefore God, because they can't be limited to the restrictions that are happening in
sorry, which God are we talking about again?
Well, in this context, we're talking about the Christian God.
So can you demonstrate that one? Like Rib has asked you a bunch of times too?
Can you?
Are you saying we should have the sovereignty to demonstrate God? Is that what you're saying?
Should have the sovereignty. Like it's you have a whole book to use. It's the only thing you have. Can't you do it with that?
Well, sir, I've blown apart every one of your ridiculous arguments, and since most of them were science-based, I don't know where you want me to go with it.
So sorry.
You want God to teach everyone a bunch of science so that they can placate you and feel that you don't have to dismiss it. It's insane. It's ridiculous.
Is the moon a light?
Yeah, sure. It shines. What's your issue?
I don't know how to answer that because the moon
It
is not alive.
shines. What the people look up and they see it shining, and they use their language to describe the shine. I don't
Glass
understand.
can
You're looking
shine
for
under
a
the correct
specific scientific.
conditions.
You're looking for a scientific exposition in a non-scientific book. This is insanity. Why are you? You know what? Would you go to Shakespeare and be like, "Oh, look, Shakespeare didn't get this right. He must have been an idiot." You know what? These people had their knowledge based upon what they had at their time, and God communicated them in terms that they could recognize and understand, not something the future cynics would want to pick apart and destroy.
So the
Okay,
Bible
I'm
was
pretty
only
sure in my opening
intended for
statement
that
I
time.
said you were going to try and argue over single words and their definition from a historic perspective. I'm pretty sure I said that in my opening statement. Congratulations on proving me to be prophetic.
Cool. So what I'm doing is I'm using parts of, because Smokey said that the Bible is inerrant, and there's a whole bunch of things. So are bats birds?
Oh my gosh, dude! Really? How many
So-
times you want me to explain this?
So-
How much?
Either.
Again, dude,
Go ahead,
if he
go
said, okay, I'll tell you what. If he said bats, would anyone there have known what the hell he was talking about? Or did all those people at that time use the same word for all flying creatures? And therefore, it would have made no sense to make a differentiation between bats because they had no word for it.
Well,
So
then
what are
why
you
then in
talking about?
Leviticus 11 does it say more than just flying creatures? It doesn't
No,
say
you're
just flying
jumping.
creatures.
Don't jump, please. You brought up the point. I would like you to finish it.
Sure. So in Leviticus 11,
Unreal.
19, it says bats are, it says the hoopie and the bat. But before that, it lists all kinds of other birds. So it doesn't say flying creatures. It says it lists all kinds of birds and the bat.
Which
So
verse
not
are you
only did the
referencing?
people-
Wait, I don't think that's true.
So not only,
What's the reference? I don't know if that's true.
it's Leviticus 11, I think 16 through 18. So not only did the people writing it down not know, but apparently the book inspired by this imaginary friend didn't know either. The same as it didn't know that you couldn't, like when apparently when Satan and Moses went up, or sorry, Satan and Jesus went up to the top of a big mountain, and Satan showed him the whole earth, which isn't possible either. So this is your book.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
you're
your
wrong.
book, your
Yeah, you're
Christian
wrong.
God.
You're misquoting
Defend
my
your
book.
God.
Well, you're misquoting my book, sir. There are the birds you are to regard as unclean and not eat because they are unclean. The eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, and any kind of black kite, and any kind of raven, the horned owl, the screech owl, the gull, any kind of hawk, little owl, cormorant, great owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the stork, the kind of heron, and hoopie, and the bat.
So where did it say flying creature in there?
Right at the beginning.
And then it
You're
listed
not allowed to
all
eat-
kinds
these
of
are-
birds.
These are the birds you are to regard as unclean. They associated in their culture all flying creatures as birds because guess what? They didn't have complex phylogeny like we did today, sir. There was no different word for that to relate or any type of taxonomic system in order for them to relate to say this is differentiate. What you're doing is trying to force the Bible to have to be a science book, and then you're falsifying it. It's just the most ridiculous straw man I ever saw.
Well,
We're not forcing it to try and be a science book. It makes claims about science, and science
let
proves
me
them
address
wrong.
No, it
But
doesn't.
that's just it.
No, it doesn't. You say that because you've heard low-thinking idiots that you debate say that.
My dude, I can open up Genesis 1:1 and go
Do it.
down, and there are scientific inaccuracy after
Do
scientific
it.
inaccuracy
I
after
dare
scientific
you.
inaccuracy.
Go ahead. I'll destroy you on that.
Hang on.
Why, dude?
Before we go down
This
that path,
debate is about you guys proving that the Christian God exists, something that you have not done yet. It is not on me to falsify your religion. That's not on me.
Yeah, well, it is on you because that's what you've done.
It's so
sir, to reach your
hilarious that you
conclusion.
guys are talking about dodging and being fucking evasive, and that's the entirety of this entire debate.
Sir,
so
we've
far.
addressed everything you guys have said in your opening.
Except
Who's
for
dodging?
demonstrating your fucking God exists.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
not.
I got it.
We're doing that partly by
All
poking
right,
holes
let's
in your
return.
stupidity, sir. I'm
Let's
sorry you don't like
return.
that.
Let's return to the topic at hand.
So Smokey, hang on one second.
Got maybe about 5 to 10 more minutes before Q&A.
So Michael, you talked about Lucifer or Satan taking Christ up on the mountain to see the world and such. You said that's impossible. So from your purely naturalistic perspective, true. But isn't the entire character of Lucifer supposed to be not bound by the physical restrictions of a human? And given the fact that Jesus is committing miracles, he also is not bound by the restrictions that a human such as us would have. So I'm not really understanding how the whole premise of being able to observe things simultaneously is that difficult to reach a conclusion on, especially given the fact that people in the ridiculous number of documented near-death experiences talk about this exact concept of being able to perceive multiple locations simultaneously, and that time, the restriction of time, is being removed from the equation. So, and that's a whole component of Christianity in and of itself, is that not being bound by time. And then you think about it from a scientific perspective, the only reason that we are not able to control things like in terms of on the quantum level is because we are currently bound to the mortal coil. If that's removed from the equation and we're solely energy, then those barriers disappear. So I'm not really following you on how that A is evidence against the Christian God, and B wouldn't actually be evidence for it, especially now based on things that we're discovering are absolutely possible if you don't have the physical body restrictions.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll wait until they respond.
Okay, so if you're going to start with, like I said in my opening, if you're going to start with, if God is real, he can do this. Cool. Like if that's what if you accept that, then nothing in the Bible is impossible. Like if you're prepared to make that leap, then everything in your storybook is real. I'm not prepared to make that leap because
is delayed reaction, retrocausality, and quantum mechanics possible?
I don't know. You should maybe ask a physicist that.
Okay, well, there's papers on this whole topic of the fact that consciousness can alter the physical, not just on the quantum level, but all the way up into the macro world. So if consciousness can directly make these modifications that we're talking about in terms of things that would seem like magic, but it can be completely done by an intelligent agent, and is no longer being limited to, it's just on the quantum. No, actually, they've done it up to stuff the size of teaspoons now in physical matter. Literally delayed choice altering the quantum state of matter. So if that is possible for us to do, and it's not magic, then why is it unreasonable that the intelligent agent who is external to this and is the one that caused it would not be able to execute this sort of thing? Like this is not a leap of faith. This is not some kind of magic man in the clouds, pixie dust, sky daddy crap. This is literal, like, hey, well, this is what we're discovering, and that would actually make a lot of sense if you're the intelligent agent that created the universe. If we know this is totally possible for us in the micro level, it sure as hell would be possible from the external perspective. This is not that big of a leap.
That's a hell of a big if. And like I said, if you're prepared to make that, if you're like you're saying, if there's an external God, sure. If there's an external God, then all of the things that I mentioned about somebody blowing horns at a wall and falling over, if there's a God, then all of those things are totally possible. But you're prepared to make that, and I want to let Rib talk after this because I've been talking a lot. But if you're prepared to make that kind of leap, cool. But you still haven't demonstrated that leap is in any way reasonable, and what would be awesome, again, as Rib has asked, and this is what we're supposed to be talking about, is evidence not for a God, for your God. And I don't know how you're not, like, why don't you just go back to your source book? Because outside of that, you've got nothing. That's where your God is encapsulated.
We're destroying your attacks against the scripture as part of proving it. That's part of it, showing that you guys have a very, very shallow perspective of what the book actually says, and also the culture it was written in, for that matter. But I'd like to ask a question to Rib. I'd like to go back to Rib real quick. Sir, I'm curious, since you said that your standard of evidence is pretty much empiricism, do you think we could trust you to show up to actually be a juror in a rape case?
Yes. What does that even mean?
Well, because you're not going to be able to prove rape from empiricism in a rape case. So I'm trying to understand how you're trying to associate.
Then yes, you can.
So evidence doesn't have to be empirical. So it doesn't have to be empirical. It can be deductive, right?
All claims are not.
I'd like you to answer the question, please.
All claims are created differently. Every claim needs a different standard of evidence. So everything that I personally believe in, yes, I need evidence, but not every claim does.
Wait, not every claim needs evidence? So
Given
there's
the
claims you
example
would
that-
believe without evidence?
Oh my God, dude. Go back to what you said 30 seconds ago. Given
Okay.
the example of a rape trial, yes,
Yeah.
you could trust my opinion in that case.
How do I know that based upon what you've said so far? Because it sounds like you can only trust empiricism, and I wouldn't trust you to be in a rape
Okay,
case.
I don't know if
trust
you're
empiricism.
I don't know if you're just waiting to talk or if you're hard of hearing, but I've
No, I'm
just
hearing you.
said that all claims are not created equally, that they
Correct.
all need a different and separate standard of evidence.
And yet you cannot name the standard of evidence that would allow you to believe in a God. Isn't that interesting?
What did
Actually,
I
think
open with?
I thought we did. Yeah.
Well, no.
What did I
See, the
open
issue
with?
is what I hear atheists constantly do is say no evidence, no evidence, no evidence. And then when I challenge you guys about what evidence is, you show you have no clue. And what ends up happening is then we play this game where you guys move the goalposts over and over and say no evidence, no evidence. And frankly, I'm a little tired of it. It's disingenuous and it's frankly rude to our time.
So I'm not
My
sure
dude,
if I actually gave
opened
my...
this by
Go ahead,
giving
sorry.
you the exact standard of evidence that would prove that your God
Oh, that
exists to
evolution.
me. In
Hold
what
on.
way?
Oh, that evolution, that is
Hold
just
on,
as
If you
good as
can't get
evolution.
past an
Let's
analogy,
give him a
dude,
chance to
that's not
respond.
my fault. The
No,
point
okay,
is,
we'll unpack it.
it's
We'll
an
unpack it.
analogy,
Why don't we do
dude.
this?
It doesn't. Oh my God!
Let's allow Rib a chance to respond, and we'll give them the last word before we go into Q&A, because we do have a good number of questions to get to, and I think Maddox even has a debate on another channel. Erica,
So does Smokey. He's got another one right here.
No, it got moved.
Oh.
It got moved to next
Oh, it
week.
did?
postponed.
I'm gonna come watch you, John. I'm
The
gonna come watch.
fact that you said that I was moving the goalposts when I firmly planted and like with concrete those goalposts at the start of this debate is frankly laughable. But I have a question for both of you guys. This is a real quick one. Do you believe that the universe came into existence out of nothing? One word answer.
Nope.
No. Okay, Maddox, you?
No.
Okay. What did God create the universe, or sorry, where did the material that God created the universe come from?
You haven't been given the how of that, just like you guys haven't been given the how of that. So I'm not sure why you're asking.
What Rib's getting to is that you guys are actually the ones who believe the universe came from nothing. You
And you-
believe that this
No,
you
you
believe
guys
that this
actually believe.
mystical, magical thing said abracadabra and made everything.
No,
Because that's
actually-
more
no,
because that's so irrational compared to it came from nothing and no divine source whatsoever.
Well,
That's
it
a
didn't
more
come from
rational
nothing.
claim, of
It
course.
didn't come from
It
nothing.
didn't come from nothing.
Oh, what did it come from then? Oh, help us, because we'd all like to know. You could also educate some of the astrophysicists out there. Help us.
Well, you have guys like Sean Carroll, who has now come out and said that he doesn't even believe the universe had a beginning. He thinks the universe is eternal.
Oh, he
Like
must be right then, right? He must be
Hold on,
right.
let's let him
What I was
let's
about to
let him
say-
answer.
In direct contradiction to guys like Lawrence Krauss, who said the universe, and he's talking about a different kind of nothing, because you can take an area of space where you don't see any stars and stuff like that, and there's all kinds of stuff in there, gravity,
And that's
particles,
nothing. Then that's
all
not
kinds
nothing,
of stuff.
sir.
Nobody, no cosmologist that I've read or spoken to or listened to would say the universe came from nothing.
Sir, I've seen Lawrence Krauss's 10 types of nothing, and it's just 10 different types of something. So you know what? I don't even really want to get into that.
That's because he himself said the universe doesn't come from, like he admits that the subtitle of his book was said tongue in cheek.
And what is the ultimate conundrum that they're all facing and all of this stuff, whether it's something, nothing, sort of nothing, quantum foam, quantum waves, what are all the things that they're ultimately coming back to, which is the rapidly
They're coming
growing
back to they don't know, where you insert your God.
well, actually,
Now
what
is a
they're
chance for us to
what they're
go
actually
to
coming,
Q&A.
hang on, James, let me finish my point here. What they're actually coming back around to, and if you actually wait and actually research some of the stuff rather than buying into the talking points that are spewed by your fellow atheists, you will find out that there's actually papers being written by quantum physicists on the fact that they can even though it's starting to blur into the metaphysical, they can no longer avoid the consciousness requirements at the ultimate root of our existence, of matter, time, space, and everything. So they are writing papers that talking about how, as much as they want to avoid it, they cannot any longer avoid the metaphysical component of the consciousness requirement for matter to exist, period. They're also starting to realize that the whole premise of it being here and there is not actually true. It's in neither place until the observation occurs.
we're going to kick it over to our skeptical friends tonight to wrap us up before we go to Q&A. So thanks for that from our theist friends.
Rib, go ahead. You close us out.
Yeah, okay, wow, where to start? So this entire debate was all about presenting evidence to validate or to attest to the truth of the Christian God. I would like specific timestamps and specific wording of a single piece of evidence that was provided. All we got were arguments and were, if this, then this. And, oh, well, evolution is basically false now. So, okay. That's all we got. We didn't get any evidence. None. So, unsurprisingly, as I said in my opening, and if I was to borrow from John for just a moment, I would be somewhat of a prophet. I'm still unconvinced. So,
gotcha.
Michael, I leave it over to you. Or, sorry, to the next person. Sorry, I thought we were going in teams or whatever.
I was thinking of like a last word, not a statement, but we could do statements as well. No, it's all right. We can do that. What we'll do is maybe give everybody the same amount of time, which is like maybe a minute.
You know what? Rib closed it off very well. I'm not sure I could add anything to that. It was, what he said is right on the money. So I'll yield anything else.
Right. That's actually pretty amazing that he
You
still
get like
said no
30 seconds because I don't like it that the theists both started and ended. So I am like, what we might do is...
Okay, it's fine. You can give him one more word if you want to, James. I don't really care.
Gotcha.
I just, I think it's a little funny about the claim of no evidence, when we just completely and utterly annihilated and embarrassed your definition of what you think evidence is. So again, we're just not going to accept that. We've given you tons of fine tuning, and you opened by saying that if we could provide just adequate enough evidence for evolution, that you would believe it. Not only did we provide evidence, we also falsified evolution in the same debate. So you're just being irrational. Sorry.
We'll go over to John for a quick word, and then we'll go back to our guests from the skeptic side.
Well, as I said in my opening statement, I had zero expectation to be able to convince two people who wear blinders on what constitutes evidence, what is potentially even a remote possibility of something that requires a designer, which therefore could equal the requirement for a god. But as I said, don't expect them to actually believe, but this is much more for the audience. Go do the research for yourself. Go look down the proverbial rabbit holes, and you will find that the things that we've talked about tonight are actually gigantic questions that are being asked by scientists around the world. And it is only in the online new atheist community where they live in the fantasy land that none of these questions are actually being, are even arising.
Short and sweet.
And must be answered in the context of the most important question we could ever ask, which is, how do we exist?
I think, James, I just would like, and if
Sure.
Rib, if it's okay with you, I would just like just 5 seconds.
You bet.
James, put a post mark on this debate, because shit, evolution was falsified tonight, and I sit gobsmacked over that fact. That's thoroughly unbelievable.
You're welcome.
All the characters we have here. Rib, if you want to say anything, you can.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of, I don't have anything else to add or to bring up.
You got it. And do want to say, in addition to saying thanks so much to our guests, our speakers tonight, it's honestly a pleasure to have you guys. We love you guys. It's really, this is an enjoyable debate. And so, yes, first I'll just say that and remind everybody their links are in the description.
James, you're the best.
Appreciate your
You
encouragement.
are the best, James.
That's
for
really
sure.
nice of you. Appreciate it. And also, I realized I have never thanked, I hope I've done it at least once, but want to say moderators, thank you so much. I don't thank you enough. It's like once every year or something. So I'm sorry. I want to say thank you so much. You guys do a great job. The only strict rule we have with no warnings is if there's hate speech, it's like, don't mess around with anything close to that. We don't give out warnings. We just like, clip you, you're gone. And then if somebody's harassing somebody, we'll give them a warning. So if they're like, oh man, they're making fun of Nephilim Free in the chat, it's like, if it's too harsh, you might say, hey, let's not go too hard. I mean, I know it's Neff, but I'm kidding, Neff. I hope you're doing well, buddy. So want to say thanks so much to our mods, though, seriously. And so we will jump into the Q&A and wrap up as quick as possible. I think Maddox is going to be in about a half hour. He and Erica are debating on Standing for Truth's channel. So that should be fun. Erica is, as I say, YouTube's favorite daughter. She is terrific. So let's jump into it. Lee Spainer, thanks so much for your super chat, said, new channel for me, and I am stoked. Well, now you're speaking my language. I couldn't agree more, Lee. Thanks for that. Glad
Welcome
to have
Lee.
you here. And Steven Steen, nasty guy, thanks for your super chat, says, James's eyes look deep into my soul. Okay, thanks, Steven. Next up, Kevin Gilfow, good to see you, buddy, says, John Maddox's opening statement boils down to straw-manning atheists, poisoning the well, and the sentient puddle analogy, where he argues on behalf of the line, or of the puddle. Weak sauce.
They must have sent that before my opening.
Well, that was for John, to be fair.
Well, it's funny. They should go watch some of my videos on Atheist Fantasyland Projection Complex, and then how some different ways to trigger an atheist. And what's ironic is one of those factors is that they say everything is a straw man, when most of the time they don't even know what the definition is. And secondarily, even if you present arguments for why it is a valid position to take, they usually just like my opponents tonight, have such a blindfold on they can't see the obvious.
What I want to do next is we're going to rush through these. I want to let everybody know, because we only have about 27 minutes or so, not even that really, before John's going to have to bolt, because I don't want to delay their events over there tonight. Please do me a favor. I'm so sorry. I can't take any more questions. We're going to try to fly through these with short and pithy responses from the guests, but please do me a favor. I guarantee if any other questions or even super chats come in, give a fair warning. We won't be able to read them at this point. I've got all the ones that have come in so far. We'll read
Come
those.
to my after party. Ask all the questions you want.
Next up, thanks for your super chat from Standing for Truth. John Maddox's twin brother says, Atheists, how do you explain the evidence based on observed mutation rates that take us back to mtDNA Eve, or I think he's saying mitochondrial DNA Eve? Is that what MT?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
And Y chromosome Adam thousands of years ago. I can read it again. It is a mouthful, and I interrupted.
I can paraphrase it for you better if you want, James.
Yes.
He's asking why the mitochondrial evidence, basically genetic evidence of Adam and Eve, shows that we all current humans came from one man, one woman about 6,500 years ago. How do you explain that?
It's absolute bullshit. And if it, submit honestly, if you're ready to take down Darwin, don't tell us, because more fame and fortune is waiting for you than you'll ever be able to comprehend if you can take down evolution.
Okay, so you do realize that point has actually been published by secular scientists.
We can't do rebuttals, otherwise it'll take too long for the Q&A. Okay. But thank you.
Being ignorant.
We have to keep moving. Colery 1798, thanks for your super chat, said, the sure sign of confidence from the Theists, attacking arguments and poisoning the well before these arguments have even been made.
We provided evidence. We provide evidence of fine tuning and a divine mind, and then we connected it to scripture, which stands, unchallenged based upon the nonsense that they put forth. So I don't know what exactly they're expecting.
Gotcha. And thanks. Oh, by the way, two things. New subs, Axel Iraq, thanks for your subscribing. Glad to have you. Welcome to the community. And Debate Challenge from Leophilius asks either John or Smokey if they want to debate whether or not the universe had a beginning.
That would be, I'd probably rather John take something like that. I don't know if I'm quite interested in something that intensive on the science side.
Beta! Okay, next up, thanks for your, just teasing. Dictor Kent Hobbit, thanks for your super chat, says, God is not a necessity. Stop presupposing it. Prove it.
John, you want to take it?
To be honest, I wasn't paying attention to that question.
It's okay. Name me something that you can prove, and then we'll go from there.
Next up, James Crow, thanks for your super chat, said, to the atheists, I consider myself agnostic. I do have issues believing the eye and ears were a product of evolution, since they all involve light and sound waves. Please give me your explanation.
Who is that for?
That's for them.
To the atheists.
Okay.
There's an interesting paper, I forget who put it out now, on the evolution of the eye and how it's been traced back to at least 20 separate iterations, like how first it was a few just light sensitive cells, and how I'm gonna fuck it up, but basically how it started off as just a few light sensitive cells and changed to a pocket, to eventually a pinhole, to eventually and to what we have now. So it's not easy. It's not easy, but from a design perspective, one of the things that I think is very interesting is how our eyes are at the front of our head, but the occipital cortex that controls the eyes at the back of our head, and how when images enter our eyes, they're upside down. So I think from a design perspective, that's pretty weird. I don't know enough about the ears to comment intelligently about it.
Gotcha. And thanks so much for your super chat coming in from the Chad. Says, question for Smokey. When we talk about love, we can bring the person in, question to you. I think they mean question them, and you can ask if they love someone or not. There is no faith needed, correct?
Well, that's not the analogy I was using, so it's irrelevant, but sure.
Gotcha. And Speed of Sound of Gravity, thanks for your super chat, said, for LPP, logical, plausible, probable, John Maddox, do you have links for all those mRNA papers?
I do, and Speed of Sound of Gravity, it amazes me how you seem incapable of using Google to find them, even though, because you know that for other reasons I'm refusing to send you a link, and I'm just going to require you to go do your own investigation. But yes, it was published in Nature. I'll give you a hint. The first paper on that was published in Nature, and they even have diagrams of the position that I'm taking on this, and they actually talk about how confusing it was at the dramatic disparities between their normal phylogeny and mRNA phylogeny. Go do some Googling, buddy.
Very sassy tonight. And thanks for your Patreon question from Spart344. Says, for the Christians, physicists have their own nomenclature, as do lawyers, mathematicians, and philosophers. As physicists, or a physicist's nothing is not the same as a philosopher's nothing.
Okay. I don't know what to really say to that. Like, okay.
Thanks for your other Patreon question. This one was from Brian Stevens. Where did I just put this? Forgive me, Brian. We do have also, by the way, Rage, I just can't help but enjoy these. Raging Atheist says, for Smokey, why are you scared of Raging Atheist?
I'm not scared of you, dude. I'm the one that sent you something in your chat asking to have a talk, and you didn't even respond. So I don't know what you're talking about. Trust me. Don't worry, bro. I'm coming for you. I'm working on a video to expose you beautifully. So just be patient.
Well, all right then. And let's see, Brian Stevens, let me find your question. So sorry, bro. There it is. Said, in their comment said, Maddox can't handle the agnostic position. How do you like them apples, John?
I'm not even sure what they mean by that. That's just dumb.
Yeah, like in fairness to John, I don't think any of us, either Rip or I, are even close to agnostics. So
yeah, I'm not sure what the relevance is of that question.
I could be wrong. My only guess is that he's maybe saying, I think he's maybe trying to take the position of, John, you are fine with, let's see. I don't want to, I might butcher it on accident. So we can let Brian clarify. He's here in the chat still. And thanks for your super chat from dearest friend Coleary1798 said, Maddox, you going to get around to proving the existence of a Christian God anytime soon?
Well, since my opponents tonight per their opening statements, were providing just gigantic openings, and obviously the reality that they hadn't paid attention in the first debate, we kind of didn't get all the way there, even though we did start to address it towards the end.
Gotcha. And Spart344, thanks for your Patreon question, said, for the Christians, if gravity were shown to be wrong, is the answer then automatically that angels are pulling things down at 9.81 meters per second squared? Or is, quote, we don't know, unquote, a better response?
Yeah, well, since there's absolutely no revelation or justification to believe that angels are involved in it, and there's mountains of evidence that it's a scientific fact that's part of our natural constant in our universe, that's a ridiculous question. I don't know what to do with that.
Next up, Dwayne Burke, thanks for your super chat, said, atheists, you say there is no evidence of the supernatural. At least research it first. The Skull experiment, Operation Flame Grill, the CIA Gateway process, and CIA paranormal spatial barrier testing.
Do I have to wear a tinfoil hat when I research that?
Dwayne Burke, look, you got Smokey. I'm just like, okay. Dwayne Burke is he's a debater. He's been on here before. He does happen to believe in the Illuminati. That could be a juicy debate. And NZ Pure, thanks for your super chat, said, semantics, where's the evidence for this God? I think they weren't using semantics as a name. They were saying like semantics. Where's the evidence of your God?
They might suffer from underactive agency detection. There's actually a few studies showing that atheists do tend to be more biased and more prone to a decrease in agency detection. So you might be suffering from a mental illness. You might want to check that out.
Next up, the Chad. Thanks for your... Lisa, I appreciate your guys' patience and resisting the temptation for a rebuttal. We'll move through these questions fast. I appreciate that self-control. Let's see. Question for the Theist. Would you ever change your mind or admit you could be wrong when it comes to your belief in God? If no, do you think that it is intellectually honest?
Yes, and I've already said this. In fact, even the last debate, I provided falsification criteria, and I have falsification criteria, unlike atheists. So, you guys are the ones standing on uncertain ground.
Gotcha. And thanks so much for your super chat. Nephilim Free! Nephilim Free is in the house, and he has sent a super chat. One of the old school debaters says, religion is BS. Do you have faith that humans lived 245,000 years ago? Have you physically examined a sufficient volume of physical evidence? Or do you say that you have faith in what secular scientists say?
No, that would be what the evidence would suggest, but I would ask him if he was there when Jesus rose out of the tomb.
Gotcha. And
we're not the ones requiring empiricism.
All right, hold on. We got to move on to the next one. Dictor Kent Hobbit, thanks for your super chat, said, God is subscene of existence, therefore is not God.
One more time, James?
They said God is subscene. I've never seen that word before. Of existence, therefore is not God. Define subscene.
If unseen equals unexistent, that's just a claim based upon a naturalistic worldview that they would have to prove before I'd accept it.
They said subscene, so like Subway sandwich, and then scene, like the scene in a movie. They said, which basically means a scene making up a part of a larger scene.
Yeah, I don't know what else to do with that, James. I'm sorry.
No problemo.
I think they're trying to say that God is just a portion of a larger picture. Therefore, what is the relevance? And we're saying that God is separate from the universe and therefore is not a subscene portion of it.
Yeah, if that's what he's getting at, God is outside the big picture. So if that's what he's trying to get
I'm pretty sure we made that pretty obvious throughout the debate. I guess they weren't paying attention.
I interpreted it as he was making fun of John's appearance. I didn't get... Okay, sorry. Show Vertica, thanks for your super chat. Appreciate it. They said, Q&A, please list the evidence for just Christianity, not deistic arguments or conflicts you see within evolution or another worldview.
It was posed. They just never addressed it. We said that the Bible had a bunch of wonderful progressive moral standards that were unparalleled and non-contemporary to the time, which allowed the Jews to survive up until modern days. It has complexity and structure and consistency unmatched by any other textual piece of literature in all of human history. There's a lot to be there. If you're equating the Bible as some substandard book amongst all other books, you're doing so in ignorance.
Next, thanks for your super chat from, let's see, Roy Lindsay. Thanks for your question. Said, why is it bad to be an empiricist?
Because you can only come to certain conclusions, and that will not allow you to actually find truth if you are only based upon empiricism. For instance, like the example of showing up in a rape case, you're not going to be able to act as a juror and allow your decisions to be swayed by empiricism. You're going to have to use philosophical deduction, and that's what we're attempting to draw the atheists to actually do while they sit there and say no evidence, when we're giving the evidence for the deduction. This is why it's such an insane statement on their hands.
Gotcha. And thanks for your you have a very your cadence is very forceful. It's a very I don't know if I've ever heard it. It's like there's always different cadences, anyway. Thanks for
I'm still picking up my stride. I'm still learning.
No. It's not bad. I mean, it's interesting. Everybody's got a different one. A gosh darn delight. Thanks for your super chat. Says a painting is not a biological system. A car isn't a biological system either. Former Christian turned atheist here.
I know, and as I stated, those comparisons don't even come close to what is required for the biological systems to work. So unless you are willing to argue that these more simplistic things, such as a car, could create itself without the intelligent agent, then it is extenuated even to be even more illogical position if you're saying that something that is exponentially more complicated did so. I mean, I'm not sure how this is so difficult to comprehend.
Gotcha. And thanks for your super chat from Kevin Gilfow. Says, why would a trimony God need John and Smokey to defend or prove that he exists? Is God incapable of doing it himself? Weak sauce.
God has his grace and righteousness to protect. If he showed up to everyone, he'd have to judge everyone, because that's what a righteous God would have to do. So be thankful he doesn't.
Next. D6, thanks for your super chat, said, yes, for the Theists, yes side, can you tell me which argument did you use for Christian God that cannot be used for Allah? I just probably missed it.
Yeah, clearly, because I just repeated it again for the last question, and it was in my opening. I don't think I need to say it again. It's wasting time.
Very sassy. We got a little time. Let's see. John, let me know whenever you need to go, and we'll definitely let you go, but I'm going to try to fly through a few more questions because
I'm good for a few more minutes.
You got it. And let's see here. Oh, we got that. We're doing pretty good here. Thanks for your super chat from a gosh darn delight. Says, quote, they didn't have words for that, namely phylogeny. And they're referring to, I think, what Smokey said. They said, so you admit the Bible was written by men who didn't know what they were talking about?
I admit it was written by men who had, an archaic understanding of science, far more so than we do today. And in order for God to communicate with them, he had to use terms that they could understand and recognize without having to teach them a whole science textbook and a whole vernacular on top of it. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous argumentation.
Gotcha. And thanks for your super chat from Chinese symbol that I don't know, Wolf, says, what's the citation for the research paper where people are altering reality with their mind? I would love to read this paper and learn how to do it.
I didn't say they were altering reality with their mind. I said they were affecting the wave collapse function of matter, not just on the quantum level, but on the macro level. There's multiple papers on this. There's a pretty in-depth article on Scientific American from, I think it was November 2018. And in there's links to like 10 different papers going into directly to the experiments that led to the component of what I'm talking about now.
Gotcha. And want to say thanks so much for your super chat from Sigifredo Sarabia in the house. So did I ever tell you guys a story that when I first met Samuel Nassan, I was traveling and the first thing he asked me is he's like, who's Sigifredo Sarabia? Because he had watched the channel. So Sigifredo said, if a boy A is larger than boy C and boy C is equal to boy B, what evidence does an atheist use to believe this and not deny without well, let me put that differently. So you get this is like just the point isn't, you don't have to solve the logic puzzle. They're just giving you one of those deductive like logic puzzles that you see on like the SAT. They say if a boy A is larger than boy C and C is equal to boy B, what evidence does an atheist use to believe this without the boys being physically present to observe? I think they're trying to challenge what they are perceiving as, and maybe whether or not it's correct or not. I think they perceive you as like a hardcore empiricist, Rib. And so I think they're saying that, I think they've interpreted you as saying that you only think you can know something if you can like empirically observe it. And so I think they're saying like, if you can't see these theoretical boys in this logic puzzle, like how can you make any conclusions on deductive logic puzzles like this? If you
So,
can't,
like, is it basically like, how do I know like that boy A is larger than boy C if I can't see them? Is that the kind of
right?
crux of the question?
Because yeah, exactly. Is like, most, you make a deduction just based on, you're like, well, like theoretically, I'll do an easier one. Like if A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, it necessarily follows that A is also bigger than C because it's bigger than B, right? And we knew B was bigger. So like they're saying like, if you can't see these boys, these theoretical boys named A, B, and C, then how do you know the answer to the logic puzzle?
You could give me their height in centimeters. You could have chalk of different colors marked against a door. There's several ways of proving their. I don't know.
Gotcha. And Merlin72001, thanks for your super chat, said, can these two theists just be honest for once in their vapid existences? Putting a little spit on it. And admit not only a lack of any demonstrable evidence of their boogeyman, but a complete absence of interest in demonstrating it, these tools. I added the last part, but go ahead.
I think you should rewind to the very beginning and re-listen to my and Smokey's opening statements, because we directly called out dumbass questions and positions like the one that was just presented to us again as being the problem with the atheist worldview and why they are incapable, it seems, to deduce and recognize the obvious conclusion that God exists.
Gotcha. And that's it for our questions for the day. We got to wrap up because we do have to let our dearest friend, well, maybe I think we asked one more from Spark344, says, Patreon question for religion is BS. Was Ireland losing to Japan in the Rugby World Cup a punishment for your atheism? From a South African.
I guess so, dude. I don't know.
Gosh, yes.
Oh, you convinced them. There is a God.
Thanks so much, folks, for being here. It's always fun, and I have to say, it's fun because of these speakers. We really appreciate them being here. They're the lifeblood of the channel, so it's always a blast to have them. They're linked in the description. And also, folks, I had mentioned at the very start of this debate, this Wednesday, Ray Comfort, Matt Dillahunty, toe-to-toe, one-on-one. It's going to be here. It's going to be epic. And I said that we were late to promote it. If you can do me a favor, folks, on your way out, if you want to, I've put the link in the description. If you want to help us promote it, share it on social media, that you can even go to the watch page and click share and share it through that way. That helps us a lot just in terms of getting the word out, as it was kind of short notice, but we were like, hey, we got to accept this because we're not going to let the opportunity pass. And so we've got those guys for Wednesday. So, that's the plan. So thanks so much, everybody. It's honestly a pleasure. And one last thanks and goodbye to our guests. Thanks so much, all four of you gentlemen. It's a blessing to have you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you,
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So with that, folks,
Bye, guys.
hope you have a great night. And as I mentioned, good old John Maddox debating Erica, YouTube's favorite daughter, over on Standing for Truth channel. So I can throw that in the description as well, right under that Matt Dillahunty Ray Comfort debate link. So anybody
Appreciate the promo there, James. Much
for
appreciated.
sure. If anybody's doing an after show for this debate too, let me know.
I am. Yeah, I'll be doing it in a couple hours on
Gotcha.
my channel. If people want to come in and chat.
And that offer is open to you guys as well, our skeptic friends. If you guys have an after show you want to do, I'll put that in the description. Happy to do it. And as well as any other debates you got coming up. So thanks so much, folks. Hope you have a great night. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Take care.